President Muhammadu Buhari says he will sign the Electoral Act Amendment Bill after the National Assembly makes the necessary adjustment. What the president wants to see on the bill is the addition of consensus candidates, indirect primary options to the mode of selecting a candidate for an election. Now, this is a far cry from the initial direct mode as the only option to conduct primaries by political parties. To walk us through the president's position, let's talk to a public affairs analyst, Ambrose Igboke, who joins us live via Zoom from Enugu. Good to have you join us, Ambrose.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Good afternoon. I'm sure you've heard that statement coming from the president. He denied assent to the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, and now he's given his reason to be that he wants all three options on the amendment bill. He wants to see direct primaries, indirect primaries, and consensus. What's your reaction to that?
Well, first of all, I still believe that the National Assembly and the presidency are not doing a yeoman's job when it comes to diplomacy and the back-end channel. They're not doing a good job in terms of liaisons. Who is the person who are the liaison officers between these two entities? These things, we are not supposed to be reading them in the news. We are not supposed to be reading them in interviews. These are things that the leadership of the National Assembly and the presidency is supposed to have sat down in a closed-door meeting and sorted themselves out and do a lot of consultations, even at the party level, the various parties. I mean, this calls for concern to know the quality of consultations, to know the quality of inputs, to know the quality of stakeholders' engagement before we actually put our bills into law and send them for assent. And also, this also calls to question, what are our level of input did the presidency have, or the party-led people had, in this bill before it was sent to the presidency? This back and forth between the president and the National Assembly is not what ought to be. We are not supposed to be, regaled with this kind of talks. These are things that are supposed to have sorted out at the initial level. But be it as it may, I think the president have also shifted ground to say, okay, let the three options be available. But I'm thinking that this may cause a lot of confusion if the three options are available. For example, are you going to say that when Lagos State does option something on consensus, the same political party can also in Ekiti State do something else, or in Zamfara State, or in Rivers State? So it creates a kind of dichotomy in the process of the election.
So the question really is, just to quickly come in here, Mr. Igboke, the question is to what extent we can dictate, or the National Assembly can dictate for the political parties on how to run their party, because it is their party, and if they decide that this is how they want to run it, does the National Assembly have a say? And that's on one hand, but I also want to ask you, does granting the president's request take anything away from the amendment bill?
Well, it sounds funny when you say the party. Who is the party? I mean, the National Assembly is made up of the party. It's made up of representatives of the party. In fact, it's made up of leadership of the party. So they are leaders in their own right, in their various places, in their various caucuses, in their various wards, local government, and states. So it would not be correct to say that the party, the National Assembly, made up of the party, different shapes at different levels. The same thing with the presidency. So it's the same party. On your second question, I don't think it takes away anything. But the fear is that this dichotomy, this various, so it will be left for state to do direct primaries, will it be left for states to do consensus candidate? And then who is the consensus? Who determines who a consensus candidate is? Because in Nigeria, we have seen a lot of things where people sit down in a room and say, oh, the party has decided on a consensus candidate. So these are intrigues that need to happen, so that we can know how we are going forward. Let me sound it very clearly that these interests or this back and forth is not for the for the common man, for the purpose of the common man. It's for political survivors of the party gladiators, of the political gladiators. This has little or nothing to do with the welfare of the common Nigerian citizen. So let's just sit down and let's find a way to move forward because the election is already here, and we are still talking. Party primaries are going to take place this year, and we are still talking about the electoral bill or law that will usher in that. We are running too late.
Well, there are several parties not represented, a lot of them not represented in the National Assembly, and this also affects them as well. But we'll see how it plays out. Thank you so much for talking to us, as always. Public Affairs Analyst Ambrose Ibokwe.
Thank you, bro.